Um, so right off the bat, I want to mention because I've forgotten for the last two episodes that we now have merch.
There's a thong, but the print is so small that you can't quite read
Yeah.
it. But
There's a thong.
I'm still not putting this, up my ass. Hi, I would like to be high, please. I would like to trigger manic episode.
I have returned to something that I stopped for a long time, which is very short naps in the
Mhm.
middle of the day.
I slept 20 minutes. I got up 5 minutes before I logged into Riverside.
Yeah.
I remember Steve Jobs screaming at everyone to turn off their Wi-Fi
Uh-huh.
because it was messing up with the demos.
Uh-huh.
And
God.
I did not turn my Wi-Fi off.
We
I
don't
was like,
work for you, motherfucker.
well, I'll be a dub-dub, which will be really fun. I'm not a teacher, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's a lot. That's a lot even for the audience, right? Like I don't know
Yeah.
anybody who really wants to be in there for
Nope.
that long. How much of this is going to be like set up on like, the getting started aspect and the troubleshooting and the other aspect, and then, having to get coupons for things to work and then just making sure like, okay, but then how much content do we really have and are the demos all going to work? My mental health corner, I'm excited about seeing people next week and hanging out. And I'm also a little bit stressed about the thing that I have coming up on the 25th. This kind of caught everybody off guard. But those are the things that happen sometimes.
And I worked on it for like 2 months because there was no deadline. They're just like, we think
Right.
this would be a cool article. And I just kept like kind of plugging away at it.
And so one of the reasons I'm always silent in these keyboard conversations is I feel fucking so left out because I can't fucking type without looking at the keyboard. I want to know a second language, which I don't. I know a little bit. I know enough Arabic to not get beat up in a 5-minute span.
How I really learned to touch type, frankly, was just I don't even know. I was just never not connected. And I was just like, okay, well, this is
If I am typing and then I just look up and keep typing, it's like there's a little bit of lag.
I use ExpressVPN when I travel because I don't want hotel, airport, coffee house, Wi-Fi admins to know where I'm visiting, even when it's innocent.
I found that even being away from hotels that long, my ability to one, fail the book until the last minute, and two, no matter how perfectly decent the place looks, to find a room that has bloodstains in it is really fucking remarkable. I just love the idea that there's information around us all the time. I actually like being in nice hotels.
but I'm not like like at all. Like I don't have those experiences at all. I prefer the nicer hotels, but there is some sort of like good people watching.
I need someone. There's a quote in here that's like, how does a software project get to be 1 year late, one day at a time? It's like really great.
The Innovator's Dilemma is great because it's from a guy. He died a couple years ago, but he uh, wrote a bunch of papers, kind of like his principle, his theories on disruption. Like not all of them have necessarily worked out exactly, but like he kind of came up with like the notion of for market leaders, if they want to prevent being disrupted, they have to disrupt themselves because of how a lot of times like bottom up disruption happens and whatnot. And it really made a lot of sense to me when I was covering software before even doing it where it makes even more sense. And so when like, you hear kind of the idea that it's like hiring, at a certain point, hiring more bodies doesn't give you more productivity. And
Yeah.
like that's been proven, like that instinctually makes sense. And if you've worked on large teams, whether you're making software or not, like, that that's how it works. Like there are some things where just throwing people at the problem can, speed things up.
The temptation is to throw everything in because now you've finally got the space to make it what you want. I see it happening. It's definitely, I see like the temptation towards it in so many contexts. But it made me think of you, Brett, because one of the things that's like such a marker of how you are as a developer is like you are so amazing at being like, I made this thing. And then a month later, 6 months later, 4 years later, you're like, I just made this thing better with like 16 things. Oh, and by the way, the next day, I made this other thing.
Instead of trying to make a 3.0 that had all of these ideas, I just focused on one feature at a time. And I think that is kind of the benefit of the more modern software development cycle where things are subscription based and you're not trying to hit a goal of like a major release every year and then charging upgrade prices. Instead, you're
Right.
just
It's iterative.
continually developing I use like Trello boards or like Kanban boards. And like I'll list like this is 2.0, this is 2.1, this is 2.2, this is 3.0. If a feature takes me 3 months and I think it's important for the next release, I'll cancel that feature.
Yeah.
I'll shuffle it off to 3.0.
So
I never have to like completely give up on anything. Like most of my projects have 12 to 15 branches in the feature branch that are things that I'm playing with, that I was working on, that I decided not to merge. Um, but I have bookmarks basically.
Because there are certain, like, do you run into the problem, like talking about like NV Ultra, like that's been, and I know that part of that like has been like in stasis for a lot of reasons.
Any feature requests that come in are shuffled off to the two, maybe a 1.2 release. But 1.0 is on feature freeze. The whole point of NV Ultra was because I was putting so much time into NV Ult and not getting paid for it.
yeah,
Right.
Like NV Ult has like 500,000 users.
yeah. Still,
It is a very popular fork of notational velocity.
yeah,
And it's dying. Like
yeah.
I would bet nobody will be able to run it by the next OS release. And the code is archaic enough that updating it it's a rewrite.
But if somebody were really looking for, like, I want exactly the feel of NV Alt, but not NV Alt, the Archive by Christian Tietz is totally that thing. Wait,
Tableflip
is this
Tableflip has
gratitude?
not Tableflip hasn't gotten an update for a long
I
time,
still use
but
it. I use it all the
it's
time. It's nothing like using Table Flip.
yeah, Tableflip gives you a very spreadsheet like graphical interface for moving rows and columns and cells around, and then you can load it on any markdown document that contains tables. You can open it in Tableflip, and any changes you make in Tableflip are reflected in your markdown document, and vice versa.
I do like to think in spreadsheets, but I don't like to think in Excel, and I don't like to think in Airtable, and I don't like to think in Google Drive. I love to think in Table Flip.
I used to either use this or Super Duper, but I've been using Carbon Copy Cloner as kind of my backup app for Mac
Same.
OS for at least a decade at this point. But one of the things that this has added is it's added a feature that I haven't used because I don't know how useful it would be for me. But it has like the ability to back up files and media from your iOS devices on your Mac.
Hmm.
And also Time Machine just isn't always like doesn't fit my mental model well. Like I feel like if I'm doing networked backups, I use Synology's stuff for that.
I'm a super duper guy.
Mhm.
Have been for years. Why would I switch to Carbon Copy Cloner?
If I can be completely candid, it's because it's more updated.
I use a combination of Super Duper, Backblaze, um, Time Machine, and Synology Drive. But I felt very impotent having 4 different backups running and still having lost an hour worth of audio.
Yeah.
An app that I've used for a really long time is Bartender. I know that it's probably been a gratitude pick that we've done before. So why Apple doesn't have a built-in way of hiding and accessing menu bars, I don't know, but they don't. It was sold to some Chinese company. Nothing wrong with that. But the only reason it came through
Some of my
was
best friends are Chinese company.
the original developer of Bartender released a statement on his website and the main website that said, "Hey, I sold this a few months ago because support burden was too much." I think they're being ridiculous about like some of the security concerns. They're like, "Oh, well, the accessibility concerns this happens has always been a you know question for me and blah blah blah," and I'm like, fuck off. And so there's an app called, there are a couple of apps that are open source and available. One is called Hidden, and it's in the Mac App Store. So the one that I've been playing with is called Ice. It's open source. It's on GitHub. So Ice is one of my gratitude picks for people who might be
Nice.
looking for a bartender alternative now that you know we don't really know whether we can or can't trust these new owners. As far as I can tell, no. As far as I can tell, they've updated like who the maker is in the app, but it has not updated the app version itself. And let me look at it. Although people are, pulling up little snitch to show, oh, it's phoning home, it's doing this and that. I'm like, okay, genuinely, you need to chill because basically everything you use calls back to something.
Taco recipes. I'm tired of what I normally have. And so it's a GitHub repo where everyone could just upload not only like full taco recipes, but like how to make your favorite condiments for tacos, mix-ins, seasonings, shells, and my favorite, a whole section just called like tacos. So anyway, I recommend it. It's a good time. And it was made in part, it was a whole piece of like, if you're new to GitHub, here's how to learn GitHub through Taco Fancy. Awesome.
And Tower has GitHub integrations as of like last year. So you can do like pull request management. We did not get to talk about the Katzen Coffee Bar.
Oh, everybody get some sleep.